So the same questions come up again and again in decision making, so this video is going to go through exactly every single one of them and how to answer them. There isn't a lot of information on decision making out there because it's a relatively new subtest, but here is everything that you need to know. And although there is more time in this section compared to other sections, it can get a little bit confusing with all the shapes and numbers and syllogisms and arguments and stuff like that. The first tip that I can give to you that applies to pretty much every single one is when you have a very confusing shape equation, you are better off replacing that with an algebra equation. So if I give you an example of a question here and how I would do my working out here, this just makes it a lot easier to answer these questions and to visualize it in your head, and it actually saves you a lot of time even if you have to write it down on the whiteboard next to you. And similarly, if you do have a really long question, sometimes it is really helpful to read the answers in the question before you read the big paragraph before the question. Obviously this is a case-by-case basis because sometimes they just give so much information, especially like the Venn diagram questions. There's just so much information and sometimes it's easier just to go straight to the answer and kind of eliminate that way. However, sometimes you do also have questions like the syllogisms questions, which pretty much you always need to read the whole entirety of the paragraph before the question, and there is a really simple way of doing syllogisms and I'll go through that later in this video. And although I've given you a list of all the 6 different question types, it's really important just to keep practicing and and exposing yourself to these questions and the different variations that they have, because that's the way that you get better at it. You get better at recognizing what are the patterns in these questions and recognizing how to answer them really quickly. But also make sure you're doing it timed, because otherwise it's a complete waste of practice. You want to do everything timed, then you want to go back and analyze it and see where you went wrong, why you took longer on certain questions and stuff like that. So syllogisms, I did promise I was going to get to it. A lot of people say that they really struggle with syllogisms, but if you use the arrow method that Medicare came up with, then you will never lose marks on a syllogism question ever again. It basically is like this arrow method here, and it connects all the different points in the statement above. So you'll be able to see which parts of the statement connect together and which ones don't, and then you will be able to easily answer it really quickly. If you do want to watch my decision making walkthrough video, I go through worked examples and I show you how I use this 1 arrow method there. But even if that doesn't help, syllogisms do take a little bit longer to answer. I think you get 2 marks if you answer all of them correct, and 1 mark if you answer 4 of them correct, and 0 marks if you answer 3 of them correct, and so on. So if you do really struggle with them, one of the things I always say is that you really have to know yourself, know which questions you're weaker at, which ones you're really good at, and flag them. Don't be ashamed of flagging and moving on and skipping questions, because that's all going to save you in the long run, because you'll be saving time and then you'll have more time to answer the easier questions which you might have not been able to get to in the end because you focused on a really hard question and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really important. Know yourself, flag questions whenever you need to, and yeah, you'll figure out as you do practice, and when you go back and analyze your answers, you'll figure out what you're good at and what you're not so good at. With Venn diagram questions, there are 2 different types of questions that you can get. You can get one like this, where basically there's a big Venn diagram and there's loads of different components of it, or you can get a Venn diagram question like this, which is basically where there are loads of different Venn diagrams in the answer portion and you have to choose which one follows from the statement. Yeah, you just need to practice using both of them. I think using the elimination is always the best, so I always look at the answers first for Venn diagram questions and see if I can eliminate them. Like for example, in the answers for the Venn diagram one where they are part of the answer, I usually try and see what kind of exclusion criteria I can go through and stuff like that, which I go through also in my decision making walkthrough video, so make sure you check that out if you're really struggling with DM. It just helps you look at the major differences in the Venn diagrams and so you can come to an answer from that. So although this was an overview and I went through the 6 different question types, I do have also another decision making video which I made last year, but it is so much more thorough. It goes through decision making and literally how to answer every single question in detail, so check that out if you're struggling. Also check out the decision making walkthrough video. Otherwise I have loads and loads of other videos on my channel going through every single step of the UCAT, as well as day in the life of a dental student videos to give you some motivation. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!